All right, everybody. Welcome to our DNA Business Management Solutions Lunch and Learn webinar with DocLink, Document Management System for Sage 300. Today's topic is going paperless with DocLink for Sage 300. And today, along with myself from DNA, we'll have Igor Kras, the Altec Sales Director for Eastern Canada, and Mark Uranza, Sales Tech Sales Engineer, presenting. So I'm just want to give you an overview. I think mostly everybody knows us, but DNA Business Management Solutions been in business for 25 years. We support clients in the Ottawa area, the National Capital Region, including Gatineau, across Quebec, throughout Ontario, and beyond. We have over 400 clients on Sage 300, and we like to do these lunch and learn webinars to give you some information on what's possible to add to your Sage 300 system to make it more efficient and effective. And paperless is and continues to be a big topic for many people. So we thought we'd bring Igor and Mark on from Altec just to present some interesting features with their Altec DocLink solution for Sage 300. We'll overview the whole solution and what it can do, but we're going to focus on a few interesting areas that they've been able to help clients be much more effective and capture information and electronically store it and share it. So with that, Igor, are you on there?
Yes, absolutely, I am.
I'm going to make you the presenter. All right.
Perfect.
There you go. If you want to share your screen.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm sharing the screen right now. And again, welcome everybody. I very much appreciate you giving us this opportunity to conduct this lively lunch and learn session with you and discuss some of the topics of storage, search, retrieve, usage of smartphones, and as Will pointed, going paperless. We all today live in a world of constant access to information. Every single day, you're using your mobile devices, and your expectation of data availability in your personal life is that you would have access to the data you need on a click. Immediately, you would find information about locations, events, food, restaurants, everything else. This become kind of the expected situation with your personal life. Nevertheless, when we are getting into the office space, our expectation about the data availability deteriorates substantially. And that occurs due to a number of reasons. And it's difficult to find the data in the organizations these days due to a number of reasons specifically. Not all information that comes to us is in the format that's easily trackable or is convenient for us to receive. Not everything is stored in a centralized database that can be sliced and diced, and pieces of data can be provided to people when they need them. And of course, unfortunately, even in 2019, we still communicate with our business partners and customers via documents. But even if you are using digital documents, you still have to be able to track that communication and store its contents in a manner that is, of course, meaningful to you and meaningful to the client and to your partner. So, how are you storing the documents today? Different companies, different people will apply different approaches, but it may be file cabinets for paper, and you have 50 file cabinets by the wall that take, I don't know, 500 square feet of your space. You may have a very, very intricate network file share folder with the folders for every vendor, every date, every year, every month, perhaps. And then people need to be, of course, trained not to touch specific components, and you don't have, control of who's touching what. And you may use some form of a software, I don't know, maybe SharePoint or some other solutions where you will be just dropping the files in and then, hoping that the proper data is available when you need it, right, for retrieval, and hoping that nobody would delete components that are not supposed to be touched. Basically, we all these days, regardless of how we store our documents, we face very common business problems for every single line of business. Of course, it's first one, and it's a big one, is silencing of business data and document, whether they are electronic or in paper. The big question there is, where is everything and what visibility do I have over the documents that I stored? Another, it's inefficiency in the workflows. and that actually would be contributing to inabilities to maximize profits, because how long does it take to everything done? How long does it take to get something approved? How long does it take to pay my vendor, for example, or how long does it take to work with the compliance agency to make sure that audits have everything, etc. So what kind of inefficiencies of the workflow? Of course, we touch bases already on lack of visibility and compliance. Is everything secure? Can I produce the documents for auditors on the moment clicks and not having them being in the office, for example? And operational inefficiencies, the delays and the storage and transportation, misfiling, and of course, lost documents. And all of these factors, of course, are contributors to inability to potentially maximize profits of your business, and or your inability to grow as an association, for example, because data growth with the company growth may be becoming unmanageable with time. Now, so what does DocLink can do for you as a business? Of course, DocLink will connect all processes, people, and data within your organization into one centralized storage depository outside of the conventional ERP. It will streamline the operations with very great access, visibility, and control of all data that you store and retrieve, and linking the documents related to each other by common delimiters, right? And it can deliver documents to partners and customers automatically on schedules. So these are kind of the key benefits of the process. Some of them we're going to be touching bases today. Some of them will be even demoed for you today. Now, so how does the DocLink work? That's a big question in our today's discussion. So first of all, DocLink allows you to capture the information from a variety of sources, how you receive them. It can be paper documents, it could be electronic emails, right? And then when documents are captured and indexed, they can be then searched and retrieve those documents from any device within the DocLink network repository. Utilize configurable automated workflow, right? It can be your mobile device, it could be your actual installed DocLink Smart Client application on your desktop, or perhaps it may be your web client if you are preferring to use the internet connection, for example, for not internet connection, if you're preferring to use a web browser, or perhaps you are a Mac fan and you would like to use your Macintosh device and just use it through a web browser. And of course, within this process, we would be applying a workflow to the documents lifecycle, such as if it's, for example, expense reports, invoices, purchase requisitions, donation forms, HR onboarding, etc. Right? And these documents then, as a package, can be automatically delivered to final recipients as a package on a schedule. And in this process, in addition, we can use a standalone feature of document management DocLink has, and it offers the smartphone that can enhance and personalize the way the DocLink works for you and for your process. Any way you want the DocLink to be used, that can work within the life cycles of the documents your company works with. All of these features, of course, will be cumbersome without the seamless integration into the Sage 300 ERP system. And moreover, with that, you have uninterrupted deep integration between those two products that allows side-by-side data entry. I mean, at this stage, I think I talked enough, and what I would like to do, I would like to transfer this discussion to Mark. He will show you the process of storage and retrieval in a quick demonstration of the concept, how the system operates. So, Mark, the floor is yours. I will make you a presenter, so let's roll.
Great, thanks, Igor, and I appreciate that. So let me go ahead and share my screen with you folks here. So as Igor mentioned, I'm going to be showing you more of the user experience of DocLink and what it's all about. First and foremost, you know, DocLink in itself, it is a Sage-endorsed document management software. And it has a very tight integration with Sage. And one thing to also note is that it's not just simply a document management software, which is really a misnomer. It's more of a content management software, meaning you have the ability to store not just images, documents, and files. You can store electronic documents, your Word documents, your PowerPoints. You can even store proprietary applications such as like CAD drawings or videos, MPEG files, and other things could be stored within DocLink as a repository. Now, to further understand DocLink a little bit, I just want to give you a little bit of a taste of what DocLink is made of or how it's structured. In this case, you'll see that I'm in my advanced search tab that we have here. We mimic your Sage environment. So in this case, you can see that depending on the companies, we can actually provide access to your individuals depending on what type of companies they have access to. In this case, if I have access to all companies, you'll see that I can check all of them, and you'll see that there are, under each companies, are specific document types. And this is a good structure to understand, because DocLink in itself is not utilizing your traditional file foldering system. It actually correlates information and data based on what we call property values. I can show you an example of that here in a little bit. But as you can see here, when I click on my companies, then my document types that I am allowed to see is now showing up. And some examples of that would be some AP documents. We have some HR documents, some contracts, and everything else. The ability to create document types are limitless and really is up to your control, as well as access to them. Now, one last level here, after you have a document type, you see we have what we call your property values. And in the property values is where you're allowed to go ahead and search and retrieve based on how the document is indexed. So in this case, as you can see here, if I uncheck my AP batch listing, my property values go away. If I click on my purchase order document type as an example, you'll see that there's a different set of property values that shows up as part of my retrieval process. Okay, so just to take this one step further, let's just say that I'm looking for a specific purchase order, but I don't know what it is. You have definitely many different types of operators that you can utilize to search for those criteria, and you can use any property values to go search for those as well. But let's just say I'm looking for a purchase order here. I'm going to go ahead and retrieve all purchase orders in my system, and you can see here in this case I am brought back with results of what are the purchase orders in my system. Now, let's take this use case a little bit deeper and say I want to see all my purchase orders, all documents in my purchase orders that has the purchase order number 1 indexed against it. In this case, I can go ahead and click on my purchase order number. It'll tell me, as you can see here, I'm telling my system to go ahead and bring back all my documents that have PO number 10001 index against the PO number. And when I click on that, you'll see here that it's going to go ahead and bring back my purchase order, my invoice, and my packing slip. So it's really as simple as that. We have the ability to pull back related documents based on property values. And in this case, just wanting it, basically taking it another step further, you can view all documents inside one screen. So you can go ahead and review all these in order. So here's my purchase order, my AP invoice, and my packing slip. Now, just something to keep in mind, you know, this is relative to the AP processing, but the use case against this could go cross environments to your HR department, you know, to your contracts, your legals, what have you, across the board as well. Now, in addition to that, the other thing I'd like to show you is the power of being able to go ahead and retrieve a transaction from within Sage in itself. So here in this case, I have my AP invoice entry screen in Sage, and we've added a View Documents button that we have here. And this is the functionality that we have to go ahead and retrieve that data, the document from Sage in itself. So if I click on View Documents, you'll see here that it's going to pop up with the image. It's going to pop up with any supporting documents, additional notes that was provided during a workflow process, as well as any additional information that I may need to go ahead and review this document. Hopefully that's given you an idea, a little bit of the ability to store and retrieve documents from within DocLink in itself. And at this point, I'll turn it back over to Igor so he can continue on with the presentation.
Thank you, Mark. Mark, can you pass me the presenter's rights?
Go ahead.
Perfect, thank you. So I'll share my screen. Perfect. So again, this was a quick peek into the process of storage and retrieval of documents, as Mark showed to us today. Now, it's fairly clear what kind of problems we just solved with application of DocLink in that capacity. It's, of course, silencing and storage of business data under one umbrella with easy availability of every single related document to one or multiple denominators within the same transaction, right? And of course, when we have all the data properly stored and filed, we are combating and actively reforming the problem of lack of visibility and control and compliance, because every single document that Mark showed to you today and the properties can be restricted based on criteria, user, company, and variety of factors that can be applied to restrict the access to the data. And we'll touch bases on that in just a moment. So let's roll to the next portion of our discussion today, and that are the things that I already mentioned. So what are the smart forms, how they can be beneficial for your process? So from form to a smart form. Currently, for example, you have a process of some sort on paper, perhaps, or let's say you have a document lifecycle that exists on an Excel sheet, for example, or in a form of a fillable PDF that you are sending between team members with a request for some specific action. These documents that are kind of originating outside of your immediately captured and indexed information can be transformed into a comprehensive smart form that can be moved through the workflow lifecycle of a document through a perspective of data filling, approval, denial, for example, coding, and of course, distribution to the final recipient. So what is a smart form for you? So it's a DocLink window that can be used for creating of any documents for the life cycle where they can be indexed. Based on the index criteria, these documents can be searched and retrieved for internal or external use. And of course, when the data is immediately indexed in electronic format, we can move documents to DocLink workflow process while capturing information and taking actions based on the information captured from these documents. So what are the benefits of this process? Is, of course, streamlined and structured business process that doesn't lag and every single step is taken on the moment's notice. It's easy and created sophisticated forms for any document lifecycle anytime. And this, with the streamlining and fairly sophisticated process, can give you through visibility of the process, minimizing the data entry because the data goes immediately into the form itself. And of course, you can execute the process without needing an extra ERP license in this process. And all of this brings us to why use a smart form? First of all, this form provides you the centralized management that ensures that users are using the latest version of the form that you intend to process. You are repurposing the formatted data that is immediately filled into the business system. You don't need to double enter anything. Instead of the data is imported electronically. You apply an immediate validation for the configurable lookups that can validate that the entered data is actually relevant, correct, and makes sense. And of course, you are capturing the data at the point of origination, obtaining the pristine image of the form without overhead scanning, without any indexing of any kind. Immediate entry into the workflow process on creation. And all of that gives you the easy capture related information and related documents while viewing existing documents related to the form and the document that you just created. So complete full life cycle process of specific document or documents that is brought from Excel, paper, or PDF into an electronic format in the same sophisticated depository that we just discussed. So I think, again, I talked enough, and you would definitely like to see this process. Therefore, it's time for another portion of a quick demo. I will turn this over back to Mark, and he will guide you through the presentation of some examples of the not very much sophisticated smartphones, such as expense reports and purchase requisitions, but they're still very, very awesome.
Great, thank you, Igor. I appreciate that. So, folks, as you go ahead and share my screen here, you heard Igor talk about our electronic forms, smart form capability. Really, as you described, this is really any paper process that you're creating internally or initiating internally that needs to be tracked, needs to be workflowed, it needs to go through some approval processes. So as you can see here within my screen, I have an example of a purchase requisition smart form. that you're seeing here. Now, if I drop down on this smart form, you'll see many other different types of examples that we have created using the smart form technology. I'm going to focus on purchase requisition and expense report for our scenario here. With the purchase requisition, you have the ability to go ahead and create templates. So in this case, if you have recurring requisitions or transactions that have similar data across the board, to minimize that whole process, to streamline it, you have the ability to go ahead and create a template. And as you click that, you'll see that, as I click that, you'll see that the information is already populated. Now, this is, you can manipulate this and change information as need be, or you can create a new one as it moves forward. Now, another huge factor behind this is now you also have the ability to limit the errors that could go through, which may need to restart the process all over again. And by doing that, you have the ability to validate some drop downs, so you can have your people creating requisitions basically limited to what they're allowed to go ahead and access. As well as we can also look up directly against your Sage environment. So in this case, I already selected chloride, which basically gives me the selection for my vendor master lookups. So being able to go ahead and to have lookups against your Sage environment, or in this case, really any ODBC compliant environment, will go ahead and minimize the errors that will be created at this point. And as you can see here as well, any magnifying glasses, any drop downs will give you the ability to go ahead and look up those transactions. And as well, if you need to add additional transactions, you can simply go ahead and add an additional line. You can go ahead and validate against that line and move forward as we have here. Now, this is a fully configurable form, so really all the rules that you have will go ahead and be applied as it moves forward as well. So, and as you can see here, you can also do calculations and really a lot of other functionalities that can automate this whole process. In addition to that, if you need to attach additional supporting documents, you can do it at header level or also at line item level. And we'll see that here a little bit when it gets into the expense reporting capabilities. Now, the smart form works in conjunction with different modules within DocLink in itself. The smart form is used to create the request, or in this case, the form, but it can also work in conjunction with our workflow application, workflow module, which basically can take this initiation of documents into approvals, into sending it out even directly into your vendors as well. So, but at this point, I'm going to focus on this functionality of the smart form itself. I'm going to go ahead and hit create. And when I hit on create, this is basically going to go ahead and initiate an image generation of my smart form, as well as go ahead and push this off into workflows. Now, folks, just keep in mind, we're simply giving you some functionalities and features here that you could apply to your organization, but definitely if we want to get deeper into what other features and functionalities that we have within the application, feel free to contact Will and his team, and we'll go ahead and coordinate a more in-depth discussion as to what's going on. Now, for the expense report, it's really the same of the functionalities that we have, but in this case, it's just a little bit different. As I mentioned, all these fields are configurable. As I click start, we can go ahead and default certain values, certain property names there. We can conduct a lookup. In this case, I'm just going to pick my Altec employee. And then from here, I can go ahead and add my line item details, right? So let's just say this is my airfare. Account codes could go ahead and be selected or defaulted, depending on what's needed to go on there. And then also, as you can see here, I can go ahead and attach supporting documents. And as you can see here now, I have my receipt, my little plus sign is turned into a paperclip. And then if I'm done with this process, I can simply go ahead and create this, and it's going to go ahead and push this off into a workflow where my manager will get notifications of the expense report and be able to go ahead and approve this transaction. One thing to also note is that we also have a mobile application that will work in conjunction with expense reporting. So for those folks that are on the road, that needs to take pictures of the receipts, you can take a picture of your receipt from the DocLink mobile application, and it'll go ahead and upload into the smart form here, such as you're seeing with the expense reports. So I'm going to go ahead and hit create here. And as I mentioned, this is basically going to go up into workflow. You can see here my document has been created. And really just to show you what that process looks like, I can go ahead and go to my expense report workflow here. I can click on my search. And just to give you an example, I can go ahead and open this up. You'll see that I have my main transaction as well as my receipt that I just attached. And when I open this transaction, you'll be able to go ahead and see the image generation of this, the image generation of that smart form, as well as being able to go ahead and see the supporting documents that we have here, if you choose to, basically as the supporting document as it goes through the workflow and approval process. So once again, just a little bit of a sneak peek. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over back to Igor.
Thank you, Mark. So make me a presenter and we'll continue. Perfect. So with this demonstration, we of course solved some of the problems that we discussed before, and some challenges can be addressed with application of smart forms in the framework of expenses, purchase requisitions, and other types of workflow processes that are related to life cycles of internal documents. So in this example, of course, when we're looking at expenses and requisitions, we are addressing the inefficiencies of a workflow where we do not have a formal life cycle of a specific document, and pieces of paper or electronic documents, for example, without structure, are passed between team members and can be lost somewhere on the way. And this, of course, addresses the questions of operational inefficiencies that are generated by the fact that there is no efficient workflow on the books today. And of course, internal workflow inefficiencies and operational inefficiencies may also bring the inabilities to maximize your profits. And of course, when we solving those two key problems, you would be able to manage the data, manage the flow document, manage payments on time, getting advantage of these early payment discounts, for example, and processing data on time will give you ability to maximize the possible profits and grow your company without necessity to apply additional resources, for example, additional new hires, let's say, just utilizing the tools and the resources that you currently have. Now, let's try to roll over into more sophisticated workflows, more sophisticated smart forms that can be applied to the variety of processes. And I, of course, now would like to talk to you about connecting people, processes, and the data within the human resources department, right? So let's look at these use cases. So what kind of objectives do we have with the HR? Of course, we need to have good, strong security about employee private documents. We need to make sure that our onboarding and termination process is as robust, as streamlined, and seamless as it is physically capable internally in the company based on the rules. We need to make sure and track the employee certification, achievement, and licenses, because, for example, if certificate or a specific license expires, they need to, of course, to be reminded to remember and make sure that everything is in compliance and updated on time. Everybody who's supposed to have access to documents can have it for the HR department. They can see what kind of certificate and licensing and achievements have been achieved by this specific employee. And of course, the system will be able to provide full support of compliance with regards to provincial, federal, and if there are any participants of you who are also operating across the border in the United States, with support to specific state regulations, right? Because these rules can be applied to the process, of course. So let's look at the objectives, the company security. I briefly touched bases on that. And in DocLink, when documents are indexed and stored, the restriction on the data availability and accessibility by specific users can be limited on the level of a company, department, document type, or even property values. permissions are given on per user basis to document and the data, which can be filtered through many number of criteria, including the ones I just mentioned. So you can grant access to documents based on these criteria. You can restrict access to this document based on these criteria. And of course, this is specifically to every user. And the answer is, of course, is resounding yes. This is the top question. Can it be granting rights to a specific user? And it is, of course, yes, because this is a paramount in such a process. Now, of course, we would like to streamline onboarding and termination process. And online forms can be used to capture employee information, and electronic signatures can be used to authenticate during the onboarding process. Now, new hires can review, complete, and of course, legally sign onboarding paperwork online before their first day on the job. That would, of course, streamline HR and reducing the stress on the new employee and reduce the amount of time HR spending in this new hire. Complete onboarding process packet can be routed to any number of parties like payroll, department management, hiring manager, and then back to the HR for the quality check. Once approved, all onboarding documents are electronically filed for the employee in DocLink. And by removing pen and paper as a roadblocks, HR can stop generating tons of paperwork and, of course, operate smoother, right? So all of this, these are the points that will bring the operational efficiency to this process. And some of you, of course, are already thinking about other lines of application when you can utilize uploading multiple other document types and then making sure that they are compliant with this process. I will give some hints when we finish discussing the HR onboarding, but I'm pretty sure some of you already thought about some other processes where similar application can be done, right? And of course, we can tackle internally the implement certifications and achievement, as I said. And you can stay up to date and informed and have immediate access to the technical questions about legal requirement, licensing requirement, audits requirement, and all documentation related to a specific employee or a specific job internally in the company, right? In the HR department, there are three major workflows that are typically applied and created. And they are, of course, a resume bank where you can go through the automated hiring process and look for specific events, for specific keys, and make sure that the people who are trying to hire are easily accessible through the resume bank. You have, of course, time off and vacation requests that would allow you to, the employees can request the time off through a smart form, and of course an employee they don't need to fill in any paperwork. This is just done internally, and then depends on how much time and whatever days they requested, it can be automatically tracked and determined that, for example, this person could not take the vacation request because they're already taken all their time, or for example, the time when they're trying to take vacation is already taken by another person who was supposed to fill in that job. For example, let's say it's a construction site and there are only 2 surveyors on the team, for example. And of course, this can be applied to employee events and such as promotions, demotions, disciplines, etc. Right? So this can be also all tracked and make sure that the management stays on top of all these 3 major applications in the process. And of course, that can go even beyond that to customize, again, the documents lifecycle you currently have on the books with improved productivity and functionality. One more time, I think I've spoken enough, and it's very important to actually see the concept of how the system works. So you guessed it right. It's another time for a quick DocLink demo. So I will transfer this over back to Mark, and he will take you through demo of HR onboarding and time off request process. Mark, the floor is yours once more.
Great, thank you, Igor, and thank you, everyone. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here. All right, so as Igor mentioned, now we're gonna venture off a little bit more into the HR world. Once again, utilization of being able to go ahead and onboard the actual document, as well as onboard actual personnel. So in this case, I'm gonna go ahead and start off with a time off request form. I'm going to pick John Snow as my application here, my personnel. and I can go ahead and access the smartphone. So, but as you can see here, from a security point of view, there are only certain smart forms that John Snow has access to. So in this case, I can go ahead and click on my HR smart form. Once I click start, it'll go ahead and populate the information based on some information within my logon. And from here, you can go ahead and select what type of information needs to happen as far as the start date and end date of the request and what have you. So I can go ahead and select that and so on. And the same result would occur when I go ahead and create this time off request for, it's going to go to my supervisor and what have you as it moves forward. So as you can see here, once again, another use case for our smart form capabilities, but once again, being able to go ahead and streamline the entry process, making sure that there are no errors as it moves forward, and it's going to go on and go through the workflow process. Now, the other scenario that we have here is the onboarding capabilities. Now, I'm going to go ahead and log off as John Snow, and actually, because John Snow does not have access to that smart form, and I'm going to go ahead and log on as my HR supervisor. Now, as an HR supervisor, you'll see that there's a little bit more control, a little bit more visibility that I'm seeing here with the different companies. In this case, I can go ahead and go to my HR form. I have the ability to access what we call employee application. And this employee application is really more for an onboarding scenario. So in this case, when I click start, either the HR supervisor, the use case here, would fill this out as need be from information regarding the employee itself. If there are any required forms, these could be filled out during the onboarding process into the workflow, as well as if there are any certificates that has any types of expirations on it. You can see here that we can go ahead and put that data into this form. Now, the advantage of this form is that once we have that data and we need to have some notifications or some type of a reminder that the certifications are about to expire, DocLink has the ability to utilize this data, evaluate it, and maybe send out a notification to the HR supervisor or the manager of this employee or the employee themselves that there are certain certificates that will be expiring and that needs to be renewed. So there's a lot of things that can be done within this whole process. Now, just to show you a little bit more of the end result of what this looks like when it's inside the workflow process in itself, I'm going to go ahead and bring up what we call our smart client, which basically gives you a little bit more of a different interface of what we have here. And I'm going to go ahead and pull up my employee resume review workflow. And here what you have the ability to see is the onboarding capabilities. So in this case, same interface really, it's just a little bit more of a Windows-based environment. But as I open up this transaction, you'll see that it'll go ahead and pop up with the image in itself. But in addition to that, we have the ability to go ahead. In this case, you'll see the actual employee application form, as well as the supporting documents related to that as you go through the onboarding process. So as a use case scenario of this, this transaction may start from the HR supervisor, then it may go to that employee manager, back to the, maybe to the CFO, the CEO, or whoever it may be, that needs for further approvals. But as you can see here, as it moves through the onboarding process, we'll know that it's completed. The laptop has been ordered, the email address has been created, and what have you from an onboarding perspective. So you'll see the use case behind this and the usability of being able to gather documents and making sure that each step of the onboarding process is achieved as it moves through our workflow applications. Okay, so hopefully that addresses a little bit more of what Igor has talked to you folks about. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back to Igor for the conclusion of the presentation. Igor, back to you.
Thank you, Mark. That was very good. Thank you for sharing this with us. So Of course, we are looking into this process to improve it, and let's look quickly at the things that can be improved in this process and what kind of challenges can be addressed using DocLink for HR onboarding in this example. So, of course, it's very important during the hiring processes to have fast, on time, and better decision-making process to have the hire onboarded as soon as possible. A very important thing is, of course, reduction of cost that is associated with the hiring process, amount of paperwork, amount of the bureaucracy you generate. We can, of course, this improves the look of the company. We will be definitely looking more professional, and the team will be the teamwork will be definitely improved with everybody when everybody knows what they're supposed to do at what specific time. And capabilities of application of smart forms and the document management automation with this is effectively handled. So, how DocLink can impact your specific organization? This is the question I would like you to think about. And let's quickly review additional DocLink opportunities that are associated with application of workflows, storage and retrieval, with application of smart forms, and all the distribution and compliance tools that we have internally. Right, so we are cross-company application that can be used in a variety of departments, from anywhere from your AR to HR to your accounts payable, and of course into the version control, certificates, compliance. We work with non-profit organizations where we can be applied as a donation collection tool, where we can be applied as the employee benefits, expense reports. You can manage construction sites from a perspective of what do you need to start a job, to start a specific job on that construction site, what kind of documents you need to be filled in, upload, and be available. You can manage that construction site, for example, or you can manage your nonprofit organization from a perspective what kind of donations from what kind of organizations, from what kind of locations you receive. And all of that is the most important part that is done under one umbrella of security, accessibility, and compliance for your entire company, for all departments. So the possibilities are limitless with this application. And of course, we would like you to be self-sufficient in this process. When the projects are implemented on our side, we are given the steering wheel later to our customers. Of course, while we are continuing supporting them on the way, so they can be internally self-sufficient in creation of workflows, smart forms, and automating everything they need internally in the company to reach that business and professional success and excel in their business goals, and of course in excel and serving the communities, and if we're talking about nonprofit organizations, serving the communities and the people they are so eager to serve. So, few things to wrap up our discussion. So why DocLink? Again, if you are not convinced, if you haven't seen enough of all the functionality that we shared today, is of course that DocLink is a world-class product with the seamless and deepest integration to Sage 300. We have smartphone capabilities for every unique process with mobile access, flexible data extraction, and of course automatic delivery of documents. Our team of professionals does rapid implementations to your time benefits that we will be taking you through the entire implementation from end to end, on time, on budget, through the proven methodology with our team that we apply through more than 3,500 clients worldwide. And of course, when you roll out, when you are live with the solution, we have outstanding support that will be taking care of you 24/7, 365 basis. And our team is not only able to help you with support tickets or the software challenges that you may face, but also conduct monthly educational webinars on the content. And if necessary, you can participate in administration training, so you can be more self-sufficient and reliant on the internal resources without a necessity to contact our support, for example, or just doing everything in-house under one umbrella. The biggest question myself and Mark probably, and Will, of course, will be willing to ask by the end of all this talking that myself and Mark done, are you ready to go paperless? If you are, let us know. We, of course, touched just the tip of the iceberg today about the capabilities. Ask us a question, okay? Verify and ask us a question if our product is applicable to your business process and your business challenge. And I'm pretty sure that the answer will be yes. We will review your use cases. We will provide you with a solution for your challenge, and we will help you to excel and be more productive, more efficient, and more profitable as organizations. Well, I think at this stage we can look at if there are any questions about the product in the chat.
Yeah, that's great. We'll go to questions. So if anybody has any questions, if you haven't already done so, please put them in the chat. I do have a few questions, but I did want to say thank you very much, Igor and Mark. It's a great presentation and overview of some of the capabilities and features in DocLink. It is a great solution. Our clients that have had it, it just keeps building and building on the value it gives back to the organization over time because they just keep doing more and more with it. So as I said, put any questions in the chat. I have, I'll just go through them here, and Igor, you and Mark can answer them. Is that all right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay,
I think there's one question. Yeah, so well, go ahead, please.
The first one was, can I use DocLink to store documents or transactions like invoices or payments already created in Sage 300, like before you got DocLink? So,
yeah, I can answer that. Yes, so we can. We have the ability to do what we call retro indexing. It is document driven, so we may have to get the either the payments into DocLink, and then what we can do is we can look into the Sage environment and go ahead and retro index any other information needed for that.
Okay, that's great. And so, and it'll link back to the original source document once you do that indexing, right? Because that was the follow-up.
Yes, that's correct.
The original Sage 300 document. Okay, next question was, can I store documents from my organization that weren't part of Sage 300?
Yes, you can.
And is there anything you want to expand upon that point?
Effectively, the storage of documents, if let's say that company for which you are going to store documents is not the part of the Sage 300, the only difference is going to be you won't be able to utilize the backend, let's say retrieving of the, for example, vendor information or anything we typically retrieve information from Sage. A part of that, you can store any documents of your choice, even if they're not the part of the Sage 300 infrastructure. The process is very simple, as Mark was showing. You upload in the documents, you're giving them the indexing criteria, right? And at that moment, they become searchable and retrievable based on these criteria that you index.
Yeah, and I'll say the clients we've had, that was one of the first things they did was just get rid of filing cabinets because they needed more office space and they didn't want to move to a new building. And they had, rooms full of filing cabinets that they wanted to be able to store, but also easily retrieve without having to run to those rooms. Plus, they wanted to utilize that space and get their, the original documents offsite or what have you. And it was a great first step to just capture that and get some quick win for easy value back to the organization. Because now all those documents that, unless you really had to, you didn't ever go look for because it would take you forever. They could just call up at the snap of a click of a mouse or snap of fingers, and then they moved ahead with things like AP automation and stuff after. So they really built on the solution over time. So it is a really great investment up front, and then they continue to leverage that. So that was great. What about remote users? If somebody is not a Sage 300 user and they're off-site, like a sales staff for somebody, and maybe they want to get notification that an order was placed or a shipment was done, can they use DocLink in some of and then be able to see or get notification and verify that those documents were done, even though they don't log into Sage 300?
I mean, Mark, will you tackle that, or should I answer?
Yeah, and I can do it, Igor. Yes, as part of our workflow capabilities and notifications, there's multiple ways. Typically, what we can do is we can send email notifications out saying that the transaction has been started or has been concluded or needs approvals or what have you. So there's multiple ways of providing notification for your external employees, and also for those that would require to access the transaction either for review or approval process. We also have the ability, as I believe Igor mentioned it earlier, to have a web client, which is a zero footprint client, or through the mobile device as well, where they can log into a native DocLink mobile application using their credentials, same credentials within DocLink in itself, be able to access those transactions to conduct further actions to it, approvals, denials, or what have you. Yes.
All right, great. What about, let's see here. What about how do you capture, one of the questions was, how do you capture the date to DocLink? I assume they're meaning if it's a document that was already created in the past.
I think there was a correction done later. It's how do you capture all the data into DocLink?
Okay.
Yeah, basically how the indexing is done. We have a variety of ways to doing that. We have capture for documents that originate from Sage, for example. We can apply smart capture with optical character recognition for incoming transactions such as invoices. We have solution can automate the data entry there. Of course, one of the ways that we showed you today as well are smart forms, how the data is being indexed through the system. The proper answer to that would be, depends on the process that you're trying to utilize. There will be a number of ways the data can come in. Also, we can read, for example, barcodes of documents automatically for you, and the data is also uploaded to the system through, for example, email import when we monitor incoming documents for example, a designated email address or addresses, or when you're scanning the documents in and they arrive to be processed into the system. Make sense?
Yeah, great. So I'll just we'll just take one more question here. If there's any others, please put them in the chat or send me an email. I'll put it up here it's here on the screen, or you can call us, call me, and we'll walk through it with you. But the last question was just talk about the licensing for DocLink. How does that work? I know we kind of covered it, but maybe people were, doing different things. But how does it license? I mean, obviously people have a Sage 300 license, but how does the DocLink side work? And I know that's kind of a big answer, but maybe we can quickly go over it.
Yeah, absolutely. So mainly there are two ways to license DocLink. It's either a subscription or a perpetual license. With the subscription, you would be paying monthly subscription costs. And with a perpetual license, you buy it, you own it, you only pay annual maintenance. Right. Therefore, the cost of the license, either on subscription basis or on the perpetual, depends on what modules of DocLink you purchase, and modules that they are required for the functionality that you would like. You need only storage and retrieval, you have one module. You need storage and retrieval and the workflow, you have two modules. You need storage and retrieval and, for example, automatic distribution of the documents that you process through the system on schedule. You have the distribution manager, and that's the third component. Right. When you have the license purchased on a perpetual basis, if you need to implement a project that needs a workflow, you don't need to buy it again. Right. So let's say you bought a license for a workflow for your construction site management. You implemented the project, and then you have a project where you need to implement, for example, time off request. You already have the workflow module. You just need the smart form module for that. Right. So it's kind of adding on components into the mix, and then you have everything what you need from the perspective of capability.
Okay, so there's like a user license to access the system once it's set up, but there's also the various modules that you.
Yes, there are also a number of people who can use the login and the workflow based on it's a concurrency-based license, right?
Mm.
And when you buy components, they already come with X number of seats. Depends on your process. We may recommend you to buy additional seats, or we will advise against, because, for example, let's say within your process, the 5 seats that the system comes with out of the box would be sufficient. In that case, we'll just advise you that based on what we know, we think you don't need any additional seats to buy.
All right. Well, I really appreciate your time. We've kind of reached the end of our hour here, so I want to let everybody go to get on to the next things. But I hope everybody, thank you for joining the call today and taking your time to learn a little bit about a great solution that you can build upon and use across your organization, not just with your Sage, but obviously well integrated with your accounting side. On your Sage side, can do your HR, can do customer or internal forms, everything. So Mark and Igor really kind of touched on a lot of things at a very high level. We can certainly get into some details, talk about your individual use cases, what you're thinking of. So if you have those kind of processes you want to go paperless with, just give me a ring or flip me an email. You can see it's will@da.ca, or just give us a call, 742-6565. Of course, area code 613 here in Ottawa, and I can walk through it with you, and we'll get Igor on the line, and we'll go through it, because it can do so much. I can't, don't think what we just showed you today is a limit. That's just an example to get you thinking. But we're happy to chat. I really do appreciate your time. We'll be sending out an email shortly with a follow-up to everybody that's on the call and that registered, so you'll have a link to the recording. You can also find it on our website as well. But thank you again. Have a great day. Happy end of February, everybody. And again, thank you, Igor, and Mark and Lauren and everybody at Altec for helping me do this. So I really appreciate it. And I'm going to end the recording now, but have a great day. Thanks all.
Thank you for the opportunity. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
Yeah, thanks all.